past 8 months, I've been running a Versus series on YouTube, analyzing different characters from Star Wars and figuring out exactly who would win if it came to blows. Plenty of people like to ask me about where I would rank characters as just lightsaber duelists, and I find a lot of sources online that just fail at this. While I'm not going to try and do every single character in Star Wars, because that would be an insane undertaking and it would give away the outcome in a lot of future Versus videos, here is a tier list I have compiled of just characters that are in main Star Wars media, just so you understand how I view them a little better for future reference. Let's start with what we know. Nick Gillard, choreographer of the prequel films, said himself that Yoda, Sidious, and Anakin are tier 9 swordsmen, and Obi-Wan was a tier 8. From here, I'm using my own judgment. I should also point out that these tiers are not all that far apart, and a character can beat a higher tier character with the right circumstance. Just look at the Mustafar duel. With that in mind, I'm also going to put Mace Windu and Count Dooku in the 9th tier. They both were considered to be the closest contenders to Yoda prior to the Clone Wars. Dooku in particular has come relatively close to getting Yoda on a few occasions, and Mace, with a boost of rage, was able to hold his ground against Palpatine in a straight fight, though clearly Palpatine had some other goals in mind, considering how quickly he starts feigning cowardice when Anakin walks into the room. For more information on this, check out Antoine Bandelay's Mace vs. Sidious analysis. But anyway, back to tier 8. I'm throwing in Legends General Grievous and Phantom Menace Darth Maul. Grievous once stalemated Mace Windu, and even Dooku at one point was concerned as to whether Grievous could legitimately beat him or not. Maul at this point has Anun Bandara's death under his belt, as well as Qui-Gon Jinn. I'd also like to add Plo Koon and Shaak Ti into this category, though I know that I'm going to get a little bit of hate in the comments for it. Koon once defeated Ventress with a broken arm, and apparently disarmed Yoda one time, though we know absolutely nothing about that day or how it transpired, just that it apparently exists, so I am taking that feat with a little grain of salt. T was able to hold out against Grievous in a 1-to-1, and was mentioned by Dooku to be one of the few Jedi he thought could beat the General on a good day. Also, that whole Starkiller battle bodes well for her, but that is a completely different discussion in its own right. Tier 7, I'm going to place Qui-Gon Jinn for how well he held up against Maul, as well as his showings against his former apprentice Xanatos. I'm also going to throw in the TCW Darth Maul and the Canon General Grievous. They're both a bit weaker than their tier 8 counterparts. Grievous in particular does not have the feats to measure up to the guys in the upper ranks. Asajj Ventress and Savage Opress also are going to be in this tier for how well they measure up to the other guys around this tier. Fisto also once stood his ground against Grievous, so he gets a ticket here. And for a little more controversy, I'm also putting Rebels Ahsoka and Return of the Jedi Luke Skywalker here for how they both stood their ground against Darth Vader. Speaking of Vader, I'm going to say he's tier 9, better than Kenobi, and on the same playing field as his younger self, or even Yoda and Palpatine. Now let's go to some of the lower levels for a moment. Tier 6 is where I'd place most of the rest of the Jedi Council, because there really isn't much to set them apart from one another at this point, as far as I'm aware. Current canon dictates that Deepa Billaba was put into a comatose state by TCW's General Grievous, though again, we're not sure how, and we've also seen Luminara fall short when put up against Ventress, so this placing seems about right. I'm also letting Aayla Secura into this section for her defeat of the Legends Aurra Sing, Rebels Darth Maul for how easily he dispatched the Inquisitors, and Pong Krell for how he fought off the 501st Legion by himself. Tier 5 has some of the people who could match a Council Master with a bit more training, but just fall short for me. This includes Barriss Offee, Blind Kanan Jarrus, Siege of Mandalore Ahsoka, and Siege of Mandalore Maul. I'm putting all the Darth Mauls in different spots on this list for a very specific reason, but I'll go over that another day. Ahsoka, prior to the siege, was able to hold her own against Grievous enough that he had to put actual effort into taking her down. In the same way, Barriss forced Anakin to put work in to bringing her alive, but neither of them have enough solid feats to put them against a Council Master and come out on top. Kanan, while I admit had a much more spiritual growth than anything else, legitimately disarmed Maul with Force-assisted guidance. I suspect that he could be a match for the higher-ups with some fine-tuning, but the problem is that he doesn't have any serious lightsaber duels after this moment to show how far he's come. Finally, in Tier 4, we have all the Inquisitors, as well as adult Ezra Bridger and Cal Kestis. Bridger has the same problems as Kanan, but without the one solid feat to prove he's above the Inquisitors. Same goes for Cal. I think I got everybody important. Nick, did I miss anybody?
Well, what about all the duelists in the sequel trilogy?
Yep, that's everybody important.
Good, good. Your anger has made you very powerful. Ah!
Okay, I think I've angered enough fans today. Thank you everyone for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!